You are exhausted. It is Friday evening. The heavy machinery of your week finally grinds to a halt. You close your screen, sink into the cushions, and breathe a sigh of relief because you believe you have finally won back your time. Why do you feel this sudden, desperate release? You call it the weekend. You treat it like a sanctuary. You believe it is the natural rhythm of human existence to toil for 5 relentless days and rest for 2 short ones. But this rhythm is a modern, artificial invention designed to control you. How did your mind become trapped in this rigid cycle? Before the engines of industry began to roar, time was fluid. It was measured by the sun. It was measured by the seasons, the harvest, and the simple, undeniable needs of the human body. You woke when you were rested. You worked when the crop demanded it. You stopped when the task was done, letting the natural world dictate the pace of your existence. When did this natural harmony shatter? It began with a subtle shift in the late 18th century. The mechanical clock moved from the town square into the factory walls. Historian E. P. Thompson famously documented this profound psychological shift in human history, describing the violent transition from task orientation to timed labor. He noted that time transformed from something you lived through into something you spent. Are you spending your time, or is time spending you? Your ancestors did not understand the concept of an hourly wage. They sold their goods. They sold their harvest. They never conceived of severing portions of their own finite lives and selling those hours to another man. How could you put a price on the very fabric of existence? Then the factory whistle blew. The looms demanded constant, unbroken attention. The masters of industry realized that human beings were too unpredictable, too prone to rest, and too deeply connected to their own internal rhythms to maximize profit. They needed a new kind of human. How do you rewrite the biological clock of an entire species? You introduce discipline. You introduce the bell. You create a system where being late is not just an inconvenience, but a moral failing that strips you of your livelihood. In the early days of the Industrial Revolution, workers resisted this unnatural structure with everything they had. Have you ever heard of St. Monday? St. Monday was an unofficial, widespread tradition among the working class. They worked hard from Tuesday to Saturday. They spent Sunday at church or resting. But Monday was fiercely claimed as a day of revelry, recovery, and outright defiance against the encroaching demands of the factory owners. Why did the masters hate St. Monday so deeply? Because unmanaged time is unproductive time. The pottery magnate Josiah Wedgwood was one of the first to aggressively crush this tradition in the 18th century. He demanded perfect punctuality, installing some of the world's first clocking-in machines to monitor his workers every waking second. He wanted to make machines of the men as cannot err, turning flesh and blood into predictable cogs. What happens to the human soul when it is treated like a gear? It fractures. It rebels. The early factories were places of immense psychological trauma, as people were forced to ignore their fatigue, their hunger, and their natural desire for daylight. To survive, your ancestors had to learn to split themselves in two. When does the worker end and the human begin? Decades passed. The resistance faded. The clock became the undisputed god of human society. But a new problem emerged for the architects of this system in the early 20th century. Factories were producing goods faster than people could consume them. How do you force exhausted workers to buy things they do not have time to use? Enter Henry Ford. He is often praised as a pioneer of worker rights. In 1926, he shocked the industrial world by instituting a 5-day, 40-hour workweek with no cut in pay. Why would a ruthless capitalist give his workers their Saturdays back? It was not out of compassion. It was a cold, calculated economic strategy. Ford explicitly stated that leisure is an indispensable ingredient in a growing consumer market, Because working people need to have enough free time to find uses for consumer products, including automobiles. He gave you the weekend so you could become a consumer. Are you resting, or are you just shopping? Think about your modern weekend. You spend it rushing. You spend it catching up on chores. You cram 2 days full of entertainment, consumption, and frantic relaxation to numb the exhaustion of the previous 5. Is this truly freedom? The weekend is not a break from the system. It is the engine of the system. It functions as a pressure valve, releasing just enough of your pent-up despair so that you do not completely break down. It provides just enough recovery to ensure you can drag your body back to the screen or the factory floor on Monday morning. Why do you dread Sunday night so intensely? You dread it because your body knows the truth. The Sunday scaries are the modern echo of your ancestors' resistance to the factory bell. It is your biology screaming that this division of life is fundamentally wrong. Your brain knows it is not starving for rest, but starving for autonomy. When did you surrender your autonomy? You surrendered it when you accepted that your time belongs to someone else by default. You accepted that the best years of your life, the most energetic hours of your day, are owed to an employer. The weekend is the meager allowance of time they hand back to you. How can you reclaim what is inherently yours? You cannot simply quit the world. You must survive. You must pay the toll to exist in this structured reality. But you can change how you perceive the ticking of the clock. You can stop treating your free time as a frantic race to recover for the next work week. What would happen if you stopped performing your leisure? Imagine reclaiming your time in secret. Imagine sitting in silence. Imagine doing something wholly unproductive, something that cannot be monetized, photographed, or optimized. This is the quietest, most profound form of rebellion left to you. Will you dare to waste your own time? You are exhausted. It is Friday evening. The heavy machinery of your week finally grinds to a halt. You close your screen, sink into the cushions, and breathe a sigh of relief. But this time, you know the truth about the days ahead. The weekend is theirs, but the present moment is entirely yours.